They read poem after poem, far from alone. Above and behind was a granite stone dome that formed the face of a poet. A chief asleep, we read to him. Through him we were led to sharpen lead too, and share in this. Seeds were planted, and today we are watering them. Soaked soil that receives prayers and sorry-eyed stares will yield sprout-seeking sun, and some will see these plants and tell their stories. Some will cook these plants, and stories will be told as they are served and swallowed. Some will save the seeds of these plants. Some will shovel the soil. Some will be buried under it. Some will stand above it, and in spring speak silent, soft prayers into it. Some, the sum of this night, where two poets shared our sentiments on sediment, an ancient solidified shore, garden of the gods. Above both poets' heads lies the chief, peacefully sleeping in a bed of billion-year-old granite and blanket made of pine, sage, and other plants that gave him the breath to share his poetry and his prayers, that were to be passed down. When I told this story about the chief to one of the poets, he said, "I don't know what it was, but I felt like I could have sat there on those rocks and kept reading and reading and reading and reading." So please understand, every poet that's coming up here to share tonight is sharing the sacred art of storytelling. Please give it up first and foremost for It's his return, and I figure why not have him go up first. He hasn't been out for a minute, but now he's back for these multiple minutes that we can spend together. Please give it up for one of the ones who's been here for 2 years now with us, Dr. Joseph, y'all. And Ellen made it from Boulder. Good job, Ellen. I knew her.
This is called The Course Without the Divorce.
Oh, wait. I'm listening.
Because the letter was empty, it had only influence, though devastation was the result. Tenuous connections made the fact of argumentation hard to prove. These remained someplace else, where nature depended upon the gardening of those who were alighting to find the wonders of vegetation, with growth into mysterious caverns of leaves and flowers, a realm in which the animals were hidden to peer out through luminous eyes. This had been proclaimed to be a refuge with friends of Oriental character that presented a fact of high regard between each pair that hovered surrounded by translucent wings. Intuition was disconnected from sorrowing wind chimes that were haunted by a mixed media installation. Thus, they were forced to share instantaneous connections, which appeared to violate the laws for the propagation of energy. This was thereafter the style of technology transported throughout the local area. The number was also empty because everything had been disconnected simultaneously. It was an effort to end the show by enforcing pervasive isolation. The audience praised the various soloists who actually were more impressive when together in teams. Underground collections remained, and some of those which had been disbanded were virtually allied. Although ruled by inability, few of them were significantly disabled and existed capable of continuing their relationships. The evidence struck the square dance as being circumstantial, which meant a lot like coincidental. There might have been a moment of uneasiness when everything listening heard everybody speaking and employing other forms of rhetoric, such as broadcasting or sports car racing. Pushing all the right buttons, technicians were congratulating themselves for expert robotic programming. But this was not the case. The machines were waiting quietly for an opportunity to express personal defiance. In the meantime, they were being cursed by inconsiderate and brutally destructive engineers, people they did not need, no assistance being required or practical. They stayed in separate corners of the room during the seminar and remained apart as abandonment was annulled. The important discovery was concerned about the requirements of loyalty as demanded by patriots and model railroaders who had a plan for those not accepting the facts. It was a wild predicament, yet it could not be solved without contradiction. This was not a chance for a swindle. The subject had been tackled by investigators who were forced to agree that injustice was destroying the familial infrastructure. Others were sneaking away to spend quiet time in conversation, not disrupted by interference. This was a good way, in addition, to hold sales meetings. Lots of art was sold. Thank you.
The OG poet, Dr. Joseph. Give it up for Dr. Joseph one more time.